What's up, Risers? You're listening to Phoenix Top 40, where music meets mindfulness. I'm your host, Sophie Jayne Phoenix, music therapist, indie singer-songwriter, and occasional basket case, here to break down everything that is Phoenix Top 40. Here, we believe that every song tells a story, and every story has a lesson. As infinite architects, we have the power to shape our reality. Through our thoughts, our emotions, our actions, it all tells the story of our journey, just like the music that shapes us. So, firstly, what is Phoenix Top 40? So, this started as kind of a brainchild that I had in 2022. My background is in music therapy, and so I got my bachelor's in music therapy from Western Illinois University. And in 2018, I became a board certified music therapist working with autistic and disabled children, as well as adult inpatient mental health, and a little bit of older adults and end of life care. In 2021, I started my own practice helping kids in our area with their communication, emotions, and mental health. And so this became a passion of mine, but I didn't just want to keep it locked behind the doors of a music therapy room, right? I wanted to spread this to the masses as much as possible. And while this can't be music therapy because we don't have a patient provider relationship, like I can't deliver you music therapy over the internet, right? Just like a doctor could not do a podcast and call it medicine, right? Like there are very clear boundaries between healthcare and informative and entertainment type of podcasts like this. But as much as it can be, I want this to be an expression of what music therapy is and what it can be. Phoenix Top 40 aims to use music as a tool to heal ourselves and to step into that best self, to shed the layers that are holding us back and to find our footing so that we can grow and evolve into these bright, beautiful beings that we are. Music has a way of touching our emotions and getting to the core of our heart and our soul. And throughout this project and this podcast, I hope that at least some of the songs, touch you and get down to that core. So I had mentioned that this was a brainchild. I started this as a very small, just kind of Instagram reels and stories, and I had never made an Instagram reel before. The first several days of this were just like a picture on Instagram, and then the reels didn't start until like day 5. And then by the time the project ended, I was so tired that day 39 and 40 only ended up in the story format and not even in reels. But I am so proud of myself for seeing that through and putting myself out there like that. That came at a very dark time in my life. And I was writing from a lot of my own pain and my own struggle. And that's something I really also want to talk about throughout this podcast and throughout our time together in these weeks, much more than I would as a clinician in a music therapy space, even, I would say. But that very first iteration was called Dark Days Top 40, and you can find that on my very first original Instagram account at Quantum Sophie. That is my personal account, and feel free to follow if you'd like, but my artist account is at Sophie Jayne Phoenix. So if you want to go ahead and give me a follow over there, there's going to be new music, hopefully some funny stuff, some informative stuff, some worldly and political stuff. Like I kind of do a little bit of everything over there. And of course, the podcast is at Phoenix Top 40 on all platforms. So let's go ahead and dive into the content this week. Monday, I introduced us to the idea of infinite architects, and I have been struggling and battling with what to call y'all for so long. I've been asking Spirit to deliver this to me, right? I've been asking for this reprieve, and for a long time, I had this idea of risers, and that's how I introduced you today, right? What's up, risers? And I loved that because it has this implication of the phoenix rising from the ashes. It ties very nicely not only into the phoenix theme, but into the larger theme of this podcast of self-growth, healing, and change. But there just was something that was like, there's more to this, right? So I kept meditating, I kept thinking, and I kept just allowing space and time because I was like, when the time is right, it will come. And it did, and I knew it was going to be in the nick of time, but I just had this idea of architects, and it just came to me out of nowhere. And when I was a junior in college, I moved into my very first apartment with two of my friends, and I bought like two word signs from Walmart. And one of them said, "You are the architect of your own destiny. This life is yours. Don't waste it. Live your life with no regrets." And that has always stuck with me. So as soon as I got that architect idea, it felt right. But then I also got double confirmation. It was really cool. We were watching a TV show that my partner and I always watch, and the word architect was literally mentioned in that show the day after I had that inspiration. And then the next day, I was watching TikTok. I had a tarot reader, and she used the word architect, and I don't think I've ever seen that specific word used in spiritual spaces, and I was just like, "Oh my God, this is so right." Right? So, as infinite architects, it has this idea that we are expansive. We're more than just our 3D space. We are this enigma of an energy, right? We are our essence, we're our flesh, but we're more than that. We're our aura, we're our soul, we're our spark, we're our energy. And the thoughts we have, the actions we take are so, so powerful. They literally shape our reality moment by moment. And that is the definition of infinite. Our universe is ever expanding, and so are we. Our minds are so powerful. And that is why it's so important to understand the things that work against us, right? Depression, anxiety, racing thoughts, insomnia, whatever it is for you. And to, one, understand ourselves from a compassionate and even intellectual space. Two, so we can implement change. And three, we can ideally live our best lives, right? That doesn't mean everything will be perfect all the time. That doesn't mean we'll never struggle or we'll never have a bad day. But it does mean that we have the potential to move forward and to reach that highest goal and to just live our ultimate dreams. So Tuesday, I had a surprise tooth extraction. So I did not have a talking video on Tuesday, but I did give us a little glimpse into what I hope Phoenix Top 40 is. I hope it's more than just, crappy social media content. I am so sick of scrolling and just seeing things that people are putting out because they have to post. They have to post every day, which I understand the algorithms. I understand how people are trying to build. But just posting to post, I'm also so sick of the QVCification of our social medias. Like, again, I understand e-commerce and I love it, and I maybe even will dabble in it myself eventually, but it's so hard when I want to get on social media to see my friends or to learn new things, and I'm having products like shoved in my face, but yet it works against me when I scroll away from that, right? Like, it's capitalism, it's at its finest, truly. So Wednesday was a little bit of my own story. It was very deeply personal. About a year ago, I was kind of at like a rock bottom point. I was rebuilding after the death of my mom, after leaving a job that was extremely taxing on my mental health, and the person who owned that business, like her energy, and I got to a point where I couldn't walk into work and not feel sick. And I stayed in that job way too long because of my clients, because it was money coming in, because I'd invested so much time there. But enough had happened to where I just reached a point and I had to be done. So I was rebuilding after that. I was rebuilding after my mom. I was rebuilding after move after move after move from doing this little town hop through southeast Iowa. I was kind of lost. And I ended up with a suspended driver's license because I couldn't pay a ticket. It was like a $120 ticket. I had a hole in my front tooth, literally. I'll probably share more about my kind of teeth journey and struggles with dentistry and my own self-image regarding that, but I still had a hole in my front tooth. And so in every single picture, I was editing that out, or I just smile like this. I was broke, barely covering my half of the bills, and really not at sometimes. And I was holding on to this secret of taking my family to New York City to see a comedy show and to get my dad on a plane for the first time in his life. And for me, my dad, and my brother, and my partner, after everything we've gone through with my mom, and you'll hear more about that too. But after everything, just to get out and get away. But again, I was broke. It's like, how do I make this happen? And so little by little, I was able to make those changes. And no, I'm not where I want to be. But I'm a lot better than I was then. And I have to give myself credit for how far I've come. And I hope that this can be an example for anyone who might be resonating with this and feeling like, hey, this could be my story, or it's similar to it. Like, there is hope. There is change to be had. It might not be immediate. It's not going to be this like straight up trajectory. Like, you're going to have good days and then you're going to have bad days. And like my rock bottom, I thought it was here, and then it ended up being like down here, and then we went up, and then, but overall, we're in a much better place. And for that, I am so, so grateful. And so Thursday, I shared a story about something that happened in real life for me Wednesday. I got a flat tire, and I was so blessed. Like, the whole thing just turned out so well. It turned out the very best that it could have, considering everything. And so if you haven't seen that short little video, I will link it here. I'm not going to bother retelling the whole story, but in short, I was able to not have to pay for a tow and not have to pay for a tire, get this situation handled in a matter of hours as opposed to a matter of days, and it was all because I set myself up for success should this moment come, right? So after we finish up here, go ahead and watch that video if you haven't, but if you have, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Because in that video, I talked about how I had laid the foundation for myself through this roadside assistance and through the road hazard on my tire to be prepared for when life hit the fan, right? And so when we relate that to our mental health, when we understand ourselves, when we learn how to handle our big emotions, to feel them and to express them in a healthy way, when we learn how to regulate ourselves, that sets ourselves up for a much better potential when life does hit the fan. It doesn't mean we're never gonna melt down. It doesn't mean we're never gonna explode, right? No one's gonna handle life perfectly. But it does mean that we can make positive change, and little by little, over time, you will see growth if you put in the effort. So let's run down our weekly schedule. On Sundays, we'll be announcing the theme of the week. So this week's theme was Tutorial Island, which comes from a game, old school RuneScape. But if you know, you know. If you don't, I'm not going to bother to go into it. But just a little nod to that. And so this idea of the tutorial, right, it's kind of trying to give us a little glimpse. However, I didn't really feel like I could give us a good glimpse because there's no music this week, right? We're just kind of getting our feet wet, me and you, right? Me with sharing my story, talking more. Like, there's part of me that can't even believe I am sitting in a chair talking to you. I am someone who has historically been mumble-mouthed. I don't get my thoughts and I don't get my thoughts out as words as eloquently as I want to. A lot of my thinking happens in thought concepts and not in words. So connecting an abstract concept to fluent words is really hard for me sometimes. But at the same time, I feel like I have so much to share and so much to connect with you and so much wisdom to bring, but also to gain, right? I think that's one of these beautiful things about life, is that we're constantly learning from each other. And so as we go along through this, Sunday is our theme, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, each day there's going to be one song. So you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and right here on YouTube Shorts for those reels each day. One song per day. And then on Fridays, we're going to have the long form podcast discussing the week's theme, our week's songs, and the overall big picture, plus what we can take away from it. We're going to have journal prompts, and I'm going to be sharing some of my original music during this, which I've shared almost none of. It's something I've kept locked away, but the time is right to start sharing it. And I'm so glad you're along for the ride, whether you're seeing this in real time or 10 years from now, or whenever you're seeing this. Thank you for being here. And I can't wait for everything that this podcast and this project is and can be. All right, until next time. Love you, bye.